Welcome to Wednesday's edition of TimesCast.
Ladies and gentlemen, the people of Delaware have spoken.
The Tea Party games.
Well, I think the Democrats are really excited this morning.
Mideast peace talks hinge on a settlement deadline.
We will be looking for signs of any compromise on the side of the Israelis.
And a look at a coming story about middle schoolers playing and making their own video games.
It's a little harder and it has a lot of math incorporated into it, but it's fun.
Kate Zernicke and Jeff Zeleny on what the Tea Party primary upsets could mean for the general elections.
When the people fear the government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, there is liberty.
So, Kate, when I looked at my BlackBerry this morning, 6 a.m. or so, it seemed like the Democrats were in a better mood than they've been in for a few months.
Yeah, and the Republicans, by contrast, were very subdued this morning.
You think that's warranted? How long will that last?
Well, I think the Democrats are really excited this morning, and they think that the Tea Party and the Republicans have kind of jumped the shark, that they've picked one too many extreme candidates, and that therefore that's going to help the Democratic Party in the general election. I don't know if that's true. What do you think?
I mean, I think the idea that Democrats have been looking for a bit of good news, and the results in Delaware certainly provided that. But let's not lose a complete perspective here. It is still a Republican year in the sense of the Democrats control Washington. So historically, the odds are against them, and there are no trends. Nothing has changed fundamentally to shift the balance of this election.
Right. I think the Democrats are picking off seat by seat, but it's still going to be a wave election, and I think the tide is for the Republicans right now.
Is this necessarily going to play out in the general election as well, or is this a primary election phenomenon, do you think?
Well, I think this is where, this is sort of the outstanding question, because it remains to be seen whether the Tea Party can get the numbers to bring people out in the general election. In the primaries, it's a lot easier to win in a primary election. I mean, in Delaware, we're talking about, 40,000 people voting. That's not a lot of people.
Just a sliver of the electorate. It almost makes me think, as I was writing the story last night, that primaries are sort of the new generals. I mean,
absolutely.
Probably the most exciting part for us of this midterm election year may be behind us.
I know.
So a little disappointing, but 7 weeks to go.
Mark Landler reports from Jerusalem on the progress of Mideast peace talks.
The Middle East peace negotiations have shifted to Jerusalem, where this evening at the Prime Minister's residence, the Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu is sitting down again with the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. This meeting comes after a very long day on Tuesday in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, where the two sides, by all accounts, delved into the core issues separating them in a very substantive way, but clearly failed to break a deadlock over the issue of Jewish settlements. The problem for the peace talks is this. The Palestinians have said that if Israel does not extend a moratorium on building settlements in the West Bank, the Palestinians will walk and the negotiations will collapse. So far, Prime Minister Netanyahu has not shown any willingness to compromise on this issue, and he says on September 26th the moratorium will end. So today, as yesterday, we will be looking for signs of any compromise on the side of the Israelis or any flexibility on the part of the Palestinians. The American role in all this is twofold. One, to float ideas that would allow the two sides to finesse the issue of settlements to get past this September 26th deadline, and more immediately, to prevent this issue from breaking up the negotiations, to keep both sides at the table, even if they know they have to really wrestle and solve this one issue.
And a first look at a Times Magazine story about video games at the heart of a middle school curriculum.
It used to be like what I've always wanted to be when I grow up, was to be a game designer when I was like 5, and I still kind of do.
I knew that there was going to be like game-like learning and that we would learn game design. And there would be a lot of media involved, and I really like those kind of things. So I was really excited to hear that, and I right away said, I'm going here.
Quest to Learn is a one-year-old public middle school in New York City where the curriculum is based on video games.
So it's a school that uses digital media as part of the curriculum. And it's also a school that's been designed from the ground up around the intrinsic qualities of games as learning spaces. So that doesn't mean that kids are playing video games all day, but it does mean that the learning at Quest to Learn is structured in a game-like way.
If I said to somebody, oh, my students are playing video games in school, yes, but we're not playing video games. We're actually building video games.
We don't learn that much like school stuff, but we learn game design, which is fun, and it's also a good skill.
So systems thinking is really our curriculum, which is based on New York State standards, and it's a very deep and rich way of looking at the world.
Also, by pressing triangle, you can use it as an eraser.
You actually do the coding and stuff. It's a little harder and it has a lot of math incorporated into it, but it's fun.
Join us again tomorrow for another edition of TimesCast.